All right. Good evening, councilmen and guests. We will call to order our May 12th regular council meeting. And first tonight, we'll start with a moment of reflection before we get into the approval of the agenda. So we'll start with a moment of reflection now. All right. For the approval of the agendas, we have two. We have a consent agenda and a regular meeting agenda. Anyone prepared to make a motion for the consent agenda or wish to have anything pulled? Councillor Fox, as presented. Okay, if there's no further questions or comments on the consent agenda.
I don't want to take it off the consent agenda, but that letter from Canada Post was garbage. Said absolutely nothing, typical political mishmash. And I let the postmaster know today when I went in there that it was garbage and about the policy and how inefficient it is. And he agreed with me, but that doesn't do any good because it's far above him that makes the decisions. But I vented on a couple issues here, so we'll see.
We'll see what. All right, motions on the floor. Any further comments on the consent agenda? Otherwise, we'll call to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to our regular meeting agenda, we have had a request to add one in-camera land sale item, so that would be K3. Any other comments on the agenda? Otherwise, a motion to approve with the additional K3 item. Councillor Patel makes the motion. Call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. You all sign in there, Councillor Wilson-Home? No? You want us to hang tight a minute? Okay. All right. For the good of council, does anyone have any comments, highlights for the good of council that have happened in the community? I heard there was some good volleyball going on over the weekend. Yeah. Sure. Councillor, or no, CAO Burdette, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this weekend we had the alumni volleyball tournament, which is mostly just local alumni players who played here in high school, or some of their spouses and some other community members. But yeah, really good turnout. There was also a bit of a recognition for Craig Patton's contributions to not just volleyball, rugby, and as a coach, basketball. So we had a little recognition kind of ceremony at the end, which was really great, and we were able to surprise him, which is hard to do in today's day and age, keep it a secret that long. But yeah, they started a program called Forever a Flyer, which is run by the Alumni Association, which recognizes people who have contributed to our community in great ways, whether that be through coaching or athleticism or whatever, but it's a bit of a way to recognize those who give a lot to the sport community and to our school. So.
Very good. Any other comments? Councillor Monteith?
I finally found out about Flyer baseball games. So there's a game this Thursday for those that are interested. And the Royals were in a tournament in Lethbridge this weekend. Not sure exactly how they did, but their season will be starting up in about 2 weeks. So be aware of that. I'm going to try and get the paper to put the games coming up so that people know.
Very good. I think the town already posted it on Facebook already too, right? Yep. You have a Facebook, don't you, Jim?
It's not me. I dig for the games. Most people don't.
Okay. Any other highlights for the last couple of weeks? Councillor Poitras?
Yeah, I wasn't able to go to the alumni volleyball tournament this weekend, but I was able to go to a volleyball tournament down in Spokane, Washington. There's 3 local boys who are playing for the Lethbridge Volleyball Club. Their team traveled down to Spokane and participated this weekend. My son AJ, Logan Boot, and Carter Henderson. They performed well. They got 5th overall at the tournament. A combination of mostly Pacific Northwest teams and a few teams from Canada. Canadian teams had a great showing. The team from Calgary won 1st overall in the A division. Our boys club from Lethbridge got 5th overall in the A division. And then another Calgary team got 1st overall in the B division as well. So we showed the Americans how to play some volleyball a little bit. But it was good. And, lots of positive comments from our American neighbors. Lots of gratitude for us being there and showing up. And, I think they might miss our tourism dollars going down there. But it was overall a really good experience. And so proud of those 3 boys for their performance in representing the town and our province and our country down there.
Did you start a chant? Councillor Henniger?
Just wanted to mention the Parade of Garage Sales is happening in not this weekend, but the following. So Friday the 23rd and Saturday the 24th. Hopefully we won't have any rain like we've been having in the forecast upcoming. But if you want to register for that, you do have to go through FCSS, and you can call and get routed through the town line and get registered for the Parade of Garage Sales. All right.
That's a community cleanup weekend too, correct? So there's lots of information out there for anyone interested in taking that in for some of the extra household waste. All right, if there's no other comments for the good of council, then we'll move into our delegation portion of our agenda, in which we have 2 delegations tonight. And our first one, we would really like to show some gratitude and appreciation to Janet Tilby. And I understand that Janet Tilby's been on the Purples, Royal Purple for 65 years, which is absolutely amazing. As our councillor Fox was just saying, a lot longer, almost twice as long as some of us have been alive. So, on behalf of the town of Fort Macleod, we want to present you with a token of appreciation for the service you've done in the community, and wish you and the whole group the very best, of course. So we would welcome if you have anything you would like to comment on, if there's any highlights from your time on the Royal Purple over the last 65 years, if anything really stood out to you that you'd like to share with council. But yeah, that's totally up to you.
I thought I'd just make a few little comments. 65 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to sit here with slacks on. There were a lot of changes over the years, and slowly, as the decades rolled by, some of the rules and the obligations were changing. We governed most of our meeting with an obligation, and the first thing we said was, I promise to be true to the laws of Canada and the laws of the Royal Purple. We promote the principles of justice, charity, love, and fidelity because we were a fraternal organization. However, in 2014, the Elks decided they didn't want a women's organization. But being women, a lot of women were not going to go with what they wanted us to do. So we formed our own organization, and we are known now as the Canadian Royal Purple. We govern ourselves almost with the same obligation, except we promote the principles of justice, charity, love, and service. And so in our town, even though we're not affiliated with the Elks, you'll often see the Elks and the Royal Purple working together anyway. Smaller communities, that's what happened. But in our larger communities, probably not so. Today, over the years, we've had major fundraisers or or organizations that we supported. When I started, it was death detection. We had a mobile unit that came to Fort Macleod a few times. Then we went to the Stuttering Institute. And since we became our own organization, then we have adopted the women's shelters or trying to help out with the seriousness of the situations, and have joined in with the brain brain association. And this year we have been given recognition worldwide for our participation in brain research and supporting the women's shelters. So it's been a strong organization to belong to. I didn't ever think that I would reach 65 years, though. I guess I'm fortunate I have my health still, and that I can still enjoy the organization. I appreciate your recognition, and thank you.
Yes, that's amazing. We can't really comprehend how much would have changed in 65 years. And yeah, it's a lot for sure. Did any of else from the group want to say anything on behalf? No?
I'll just say thanks for recognizing Janet. We think it's spectacular, and thanks for doing this.
So if there's no other comments, we do want to take a time, and we have a plaque we will present with you, and we'll take a picture. I believe we're going to do it on the right wall here, right? And we'll take a picture with council. So as soon as we're done that, we'll reconvene, but we'll take some time just to take a picture together, and thank you. So thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. That was very good. All right, tonight also we have a delegation, and we'd like to invite Sean Patience that would like to present a bit of a discussion on the River Valley Wilderness Park development. So welcome to council, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, Mayor Fader. Back in March, I had read with interest that council had approved the Pathway Master Plan, and I have to admit somewhere along the way I certainly missed the public engagement, but I'm not here to critique the master plan, but I'm here to discuss maybe something a lot larger scale and more of a broader oversight of the River Valley Park, as opposed to just adding pathways. So back in 1988, when the original premise of developing in the River Valley was brought forward, town council of the day had numerous thoughts about what to do down there, and one of them was to develop a large campground on the north side of the river on the east side of 811. And that was met with a lot of disdain around the community, et cetera, and council backed up and at the time said, hey, we need to maybe get some deeper public input into what we're going to do in the River Valley Park. So I had come on council as a very mid-20s young councillor, and the mayor of the day threw me into the fire and said, hey, I want you to manage this, and I'm going to put you on this committee. And it was a fairly large committee. I believe there was about 15 of us to begin with. And we worked for about 2 years on different concepts and did different public engagement strategies. We didn't have internet surveys at the time to utilize, so we did a lot of manual legwork. And we developed that 200-acre parcel with $90,000 that came in the form of a grant for them, MLA Leroy Feuerbotten. And almost everything that we put into the park at that time is actually still there, despite the fact that it's been flooded 5 times since, probably, a couple of times in a very major way. And a few of the amenities had fallen into the river, stuff that was built along the banks. So when I read the Pathway Master Plan, it brought to my attention something that I've thought of for several years, in fact, and that is that after 35 years, maybe it's time we take a larger scale, more holistic approach about developing in the River Valley. We've seen 35 years worth of usage there, and a lot of people take for granted certain areas. And a prime example is we had some challenges very early on in our first year with horses and pedestrians utilizing the same pathways. So to solve it, we said that, okay, look, we can't have horses on the upgraded paths because they're destroying them and it's a hazard to pedestrians and kids that are walking. So we allocated the east side of Highway 11 space to people with horses, so that we recognized that that's a recreational activity, and we had a lot of horse people in town as well. So we also left about 50 acres on the very far west end on the north side of the river as natural habitat for wildlife. But I think over the years, a lot of these things have been forgotten. Why did we do this? Why did we develop here? Why did they put a path here, for instance? And it really goes back to original concepts. The River Valley Park does not look like the River Valley did in 1988. There was off-road vehicle use all throughout there. There was baseball diamonds, 2 baseball diamonds on the far west end, junk, trash, motorcycle use, ATV use, 4x4 use, huge areas that had been burned and full of garbage and freezers and fridges, et cetera, et cetera. So we tried to utilize at the time areas that had been damaged and already disturbed, and we reseeded hundreds and hundreds of yards of roadway that today you wouldn't know were ever there, right? So when I saw the master plan, it brought to my attention the fact that maybe we need to have a rethink of what we did 35 years ago. Do those things still work? Does that natural area still work? Has it served its purpose? If we're going to develop pathways on the east side of 811, How are we going to manage people with horses, and are we going to have them intermingling? I will also say in my own experience that the advent of the e-bike has changed pathway uses and caused different safety concerns that we didn't even consider back in 1990, 91. What's worked, what hasn't worked? And many of you will not probably remember, some will, some of the large floods that happened early on, especially 1995. And for those of you that don't know, we have a little walking bridge on the west side of 811. Most of you have probably utilized. We also had an outhouse on the far west end of the park, right where the path system ends. And after the flood in 95, our outhouse was 27 feet up in a cottonwood tree. To tell you, to give you an example of what the river can do down there, and it was the reason we never used asphalt, for instance. The paths went through it extremely well, considering, in fact, most of the damage we incurred was by the water and sewer treatment facilities, which you guys have upgraded and nicely, I might add. We also had a number of issues with private landowners at that time that I'm not sure are still there. There's some historic sites that were left, I want to say, not uninterpreted, but unattainable, without access. And I believe there's opportunities today to perhaps quell that and still allow privacy to some of those particular landowners. So when I read the master plan, I thought, you know, I've been thinking about this for some time, and I'm one of there's still a few of us around, but I was young enough at the time that I've still got a little spark left. And I've actually spoken to some of my comrades from those days, and unfortunately several have passed on. But we were all very proud of the work that we did back then, and the process that we undertook really proved itself to be very successful. It quelled all concern about development down there. Council was very proud of the work that we did, and it's since become one of our favorite places for, from a community perspective, one that's not a tourist attraction per se, but one that's a community attraction and beloved by all. And the use down there, I don't have to tell anybody here, is incredible, especially in the summer. But could we do better? I do think we can. And like I said, I'm not here to critique the master plan. I've worked with Jody Patron before, and I highly value her skill. But looking at it, it did present to me an opportunity that I think council would be, I don't want to say well advised, but I think the council could take advantage of at this particular point. Since the pathway plan is a living document, as I understand it, I have proposed that perhaps we do what we did then that was very successful, and that council consider putting an ad hoc committee together of members of the public, interested stakeholders, obviously council, staff, and have a review and a revisit of the original plan. What worked, what didn't, what can we enhance, what hasn't worked, what can we do better? And if we're going to do something, and I will certainly say that I sat around this table for a number of years as well, that if we're going to do something, we have to be able to not only build it, but we have to be able to maintain it. And I will say I'm a little saddened that some of those amenities down there are now in states of disrepair, fencing most specifically. Even some of the benches that are 35 years old that are still holding up but are now sinking into the land along the paths, those kind of things, right? We did have to rebuild the walking bridge after the 95 flood, but we're not done with floods in Fort Macleod. I think we're getting lulled to sleep a little bit, and one of these days the rain's going to come, and we're going to learn again that there's certain things we can and can't do. And I think there's been a lot of knowledge gained over the past 35 years, and I certainly offer my services to a committee like that to be able to not only bring the paths forward, but to bring the usage of the areas forward and the mix of private and public land and how we can mitigate any challenges to that, because that was a very divisive topic originally. And I know if we get doing certain things that we're going to be crossing the same bridge, and I just don't think it's necessary, and I don't think council needs the aggravation either, frankly. So I wanted to propose, and I don't want to take a lot of council's time. I know you've got lots on your plate, especially the next topic on your agenda, but I did want to propose, and quite seriously, and it's something I'd thought about before, but the master plan coming out really did spur me into coming forward and saying, hey, I think after 35 years, the River Valley Wilderness Park is not just a typical playground in Fort Macleod. It's not like a community park that takes up a half an acre. It's 200 acres. And its value doesn't only lie in its physical amenities, it lies in its natural amenities as well, right? I know many people will tell you, did you see the moose down there? Did you see the 3 moose down? There's a cougar down. Do you know what I mean? It's a way for our community to stay in touch with nature, and we are so blessed to have that particular piece of land. I think it's time we just have a step back and take a look at it and go, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? Can we do things that can enhance the usage of the park, but don't belittle the natural landscape that actually is the draw in the first place? And all I'm suggesting is an ad hoc committee put together for a very specific time period, and I've suggested a year. That seems to work. Very tight timeline. Let's review. Let's talk to people. Let's talk to horse people. Let's talk to dog people. How can we intermingle? How can we make use of that property without taking away the characteristics that make it so valuable in the first place? So I wanted to come forward before you got too far in, and I apologize because I'd read that in the March 19th Gazette, but I've had some personal issues since that I've had to deal with that drew my attention away. And so I thank your CAO, Mr. Burdett, for getting me onto the agenda, and I appreciate council allowing me the time to speak to this, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Sean Patience, for coming tonight and presenting. I first wanted to acknowledge just the energy and the passion you put behind this in the first place, because that's before most of our time, and a lot of work went into that. So thank you for that. Does anyone, council member, have any questions? I think your presentation is pretty clear. The ask of council is consider an ad hoc committee. And yeah, speaking to the master plan, we did have an engaged open house. I believe it was last year. If I don't remember the exact date, but yeah, we did have some open houses. There was, it's always hard with, as you probably know, getting engagement at some of the open houses. But it's after it's done that we sometimes can hear. So, but that's totally fine. It's better late than never. So we appreciate the opportunity, and yeah, I think there's definitely an option here. Does council have any other questions? Otherwise, perhaps a motion in the considerations that we can make to defer to administration to make recommendation to council on the ad hoc option.
If I might, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
You're quite astute in the fact that often you don't get input until you actually start doing something.
Yep.
And there is a lot of public engagement, and over the last year we know politically that there's been almost an overdose of engagement, and we did find that in 1990, 89 and 90, that until we started we didn't really hear a lot of things loud, but then we did. And those are lessons that we've learned, and that's why I thought it would be valuable to exercise some of that historical knowledge so that we don't wade back into the same pool that we got into in the first place. And we know that there are pitfalls out there for sure, but there are certainly opportunities as well. And like I said, it extends far beyond just developing paths. Although I think everyone loves pathways, and I'm certainly a fan of them myself. But there are much bigger picture items here that I think we can have a good hard look at and ensure that we've done our due diligence before we start stepping forward so that we can avoid some of those pitfalls. And I'd certainly relish the opportunity to be part of that and to help council, I think, do something that would be extremely positive for the community.
That's very good. I did have one question. It's 2 years ago now that we paved the pathway on the south bank of the river, and the feedback we've been getting has been very positive. Just the opportunity for people that typically wouldn't be able to use pathways to be able to use them, whether it's strollers or whether it's, wheelchairs and the like. And so there's been some interest in the community to pave some of the pathways, existing pathways on the north side of the river. And I was just wondering if you had any initial feedback on that.
I do. I don't think it's a good idea. And the reason I say that isn't because they're not nice, and I certainly understand people with strollers, etc., certainly finding them much more advantageous than the gravel paths. But when it floods, the restoration is extremely expensive, and the asphalt paths are the first things that will be challenged, and they will be on the south side as well. The gravel paths, however, stood up extremely well and have through multiple floods, which is one of the reasons we went that way in the first place. It wasn't, I will say over the years that the paths aren't as hard as they used to be. And that just happens with time. They're 35 years old, and they were made from fines, not even limestone at the time, and compacted. And in fact, the person that built most of them is still in Fort Macleod. Westwood did a lot of the original work, and Wayne Cleaver did a lot of the original path work. But we chose that for a reason, and it did prove itself well. Even when parts of Highway 811 were washing away, those paths were still in place. Now, there were certain areas of very high flow that we had to go back in and restore, but very quick, very simple, very inexpensive to do so. And it matched the natural surroundings on which we built the park, which is basically a gravel bed covered with trees and plant life, right? So I'm certainly not critical of it, and I do love the paved path on the south side. I do think on the north side, though, that unless you're prepared to restore them when the time comes, not if, but when, I would certainly suggest it. And my goal here tonight is to not tell you what to do. My goal here is to suggest that we put a group of interested people together to bring those recommendations forward to council. Obviously, I have my own opinion, but that's not what I'm here to sell, right? So.
No, it's good just to try to understand your experience based on what you've done so far. Okay, well, if there's no other questions or comments from council, we can consider this under the next portion of our agenda. We want to thank you for coming tonight and making your thoughts and requests known, and we'll be sure to keep you in the loop on where things go. Thank you. All right, so under consideration of delegations and public hearings, we're going to start, sorry. Next portion is a public hearing, and we'll start by requesting our planner, Gavin Scott, to introduce bylaw 1997.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This evening we have for your consideration bylaw 1997. The legal description for this redesignation is Lot 10 and 11 of Block 86, Plan 92B. The proposal is to move from industrial general IG to commercial general CG. And this has been advertised in the Gazette on the 23rd and 30th, and from that we did not receive any comments. So moving forward this evening, we do recommend that second and third be given to this bylaw. If you have any questions, I'll answer those.
Very good. So tonight we will be doing a public hearing, so we can start with requesting a motion from council to open the public hearing for bylaw 1997. Councillor Fox makes that motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Being this is a public hearing, anyone in the gallery wishing to speak for or against bylaw 1997 may do so now. Anyone here wishing to speak for or against bylaw 1997? Last call, anyone wishing to speak for or against 1997 bylaw? It's a land use bylaw amendment from industrial general to commercial general. Seeing none, we'll call for a motion to close the public hearing for bylaw 1997. Councillor Poitras makes a motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Under consideration of the public hearing we just had, is there a council member wishing to make a motion for second reading of bylaw 1997? Councillor Fox makes the motion. Any questions, comments, concerns regarding bylaw 1997 from council? Discussion, debate? Seeing none, we'll call it to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And requesting a motion for third reading of bylaw 1997. Councillor Patel makes the motion. If there's no further discussion or debate, we'll call it to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. That was a quick one, Gavin. Wow. River Valley Wilderness Park future developments as per the presentation or delegation that we were just presented with. Is anyone prepared to make a motion to follow through on the request of the presenter? Councillor Monteith.
I would so move.
And the move is to recommend administration report back on it. I don't think
Come back with a plan and recommendations of,
if
what he's at least brought to our attention. Because I think it's a good idea that we look at that, because I never go there, so I have no idea what's there. So I think it's good that we look at it and come up with a plan, because as he said, 35 years is a long time.
right. CEO Burdett, do you have any thoughts, comments on the motion?
So just to clarify, the motion is that administration come back with a plan and recommendation regarding the wilderness park and the use of that land and the potential of an ad hoc committee.
Yeah, I think if administration comes back to council and says, no, we have this going on and that's how we're getting our feedback, and we'll make sure we're include more people in the feedback or whatever. I think bottom line, we just want to make sure we're engaging with the community on development of River Valley Lands Park. Yeah. Is that good, Councillor Monteith? Any other comments, questions, debates? Seeing none, the motion's on the floor. We'll call it the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And moving on to new business, library budget review and annual report. And we will ask our Director of Community Services to introduce this for us.
Thank you. Darlene, our head librarian, sent over a request to have this presented to council. For provincial funding, council is required to review approved financial, review and approve the financials as well as the board budget that the library board sets. So that's what's been presented to you tonight in your package. Councillor Fox does sit on that board, so if there's any specifics regarding the budget, I'm hopeful that she'll be able to speak to them a little bit. But for our purposes tonight, we do need the 2025 library board budget and the 24 annual financial review approved by council. Thank you.
Anyone prepared to make a motion as per the recommendation? Councillor Patel makes the motion to approve the 2025 library budget and the 2024 annual financial, or the 2024 annual report. Any questions from council regarding the library budget review? Councillor Monteith?
Is the, from the looks of it, there's no major differences between last year and this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It's all pretty much the same. We have some GICs that are coming for renewal this year. They're being reinvested. There's a few extra things that we're purchasing for the library to do some revitalization with movable shelves, things like that. But other than that, there's nothing really new happening.
The, in the financial statements, the money you get from the Friends, where does that show up? I'm speaking more of the financial statements than the budget. Looks like it would have to be grants. Does that make sense?
Sorry if I can speak to that just a little bit. I believe that the society is often presented with almost a wish list, and so the society purchases that type of stuff themselves, so it doesn't necessarily hit. They have their own financial statements and everything. It wouldn't hit the actual library board budgets or financial statements, because I believe that projects or purchases are done right through them and not kind of in coordination with these financials and budgets.
It's kind of two operations running simultaneously almost. One's more of a fundraising arm, and one's more the operations. Does that answer your question, Councillor Monteith?
It does.
So motion is on the floor. Any further questions or discussion? If none, I will call to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And there is no administrative reports, and I will request a motion from council to go in camera for 3 land sale FOIP section 16 items. Councillor Wolstenholme makes the motion. We'll call to question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, everyone.